After knowing the definition of the centers of triangles, so let's have a warm-up first to see two past paper questions. So the first one, it comes from 2006. So let's read the question together. So first of all, you know ABC as acute angle triangle. So once again, see whether you remember the word called acute. And then it tells you that AB is equal to AC. So I mark in the diagram. And then so it also tells you that AD is perpendicular to BC. So there's a 90 degree. And now, so the keywords will be which of the following must be true. So it looks like a very hard question because now it's asking you about would the circumcenter, orthocenter, and centroid lying on the line AD. So that means this is our focus. So whether the center itself, those centers, are they lying on the line AD? So in this question, we have to shift the focus to what kind of line is it? So you have to look at it. So first of all, because of 90, so that's why this line should be at altitude. So which means the orthocenter should be on AD. Next, because it's an isosceles triangle, so that's what isosceles mean, isosceles triangle, and this is a 90. By symmetry, you can imagine that BD will be also to DC. It is isosceles, there's a 90 degree direct line, and it is symmetric. And then so that's why BD is DC. Together with this 90 degree and equal, so that's why you can also say this line will be a perpendicular bisector. So perpendicular bisector to this, that means the circumcenter also lying on the AD. So finally, we come to look at the word called centroid. So to which three lines to make a centroid? Yes, it is medians. And now please check, is the line AD a median? Line AD, which cuts BC into two equal halves, BD and DC. So that's why it's also a median. So to this line, it is also a median. So that's why that's also where the centroid lies. And finally, it comes up to the answer D. The next one in 2007 is much harder because it's about, it's about obtuse angle triangle. And then so it's asking you which one to be going outside the triangle ABC. So it's simply talking about whether you remember the facts or not. And the answer will be circumcenter, orthocenter, which comes up to the answer C. But of course, you have to remember, so these two triangles can go outside, so outside the triangle when the triangle is obtuse. So while you remember centroid, or I write this way, so centroid as well, which center? The incenter? Yes. So centroid and incenter, so it's always inside the triangle. So no matter it's obtuse, acute, or right angle triangle. And now we come to some harder questions, or maybe a very hard question. So let's start from the question 42 in the year of 2012. So you remember in paper 2, so there are 45 questions. So when you look at 42, and then so you find that it's almost in the end. That means in DSE it is treated as a very hard question. At the time in HKCEE, so there are 54 questions. And when you read 51, so again you will see that it may be a big challenge to most of the candidates. Okay, by the way, so as you study, try hard to understand it. And then now, so you are given a coordinates. O is the origin, and you have point A and point B. Now, the thing I observe will be, can you see that it's about 18. So can you imagine what kind of line AB would be? So A is 18 something, B is 18 something. Would it be a vertical or horizontal line? Alright, so have your answer first, and then I will try to draw the picture afterward. Alright, next, the question is asking about can you find out the x-coordinate of the orthocenter of triangle OAB? So that's why if I don't have the picture, I can't figure out what I'm going to find. So that's why I plan to draw the picture by myself. So it's a big picture. So with xy coordinates, xy axis, and then so 18, 20 minus 24. So you have the point A. So called 18 minus 24. So B will be also to the right by 18, up by 24. So it is the point B, 18, 24. And then so see whether you got the proper answer. It is a vertical line from point B to point A, because both of them they are 18 and 18. So you also have the origin, so which is at the intersection of xy axis, and now you're considering triangle OAB. So you try to link up the points together. So here it is your triangle OAB. And now to study the question about orthocenter. So it's about orthocenter. So what special lines does it talk about? So it's about the altitude. So that's why you have to find out the 3 altitudes in order to figure out where is the orthocenter. And now in the picture, you will see that AB is vertical line. So that's why O something, for example, okay? So it's a 90 degree. So which means so the orthocenter would be lying along this line. So it may be longer. So this is the altitude of the triangle. So that's why orthocenter must be lying on it. And then on this line, so that means the orthocenter itself would be something quite special. Because it is on the x-axis, that means so one of the numbers should be 0. And it should be the y coordinates. And now in order to find it out, and then so I call it maybe A0. And then so which means in order to find the x coordinate, that means I'm going to find the value of A. And then you do remember that ortho itself means perpendicular. So that's why we may be considering some slope to find the answer. For example, so it is so like this point, so it is our orthocenter. And then next, so you expect B joining to the orthocenter would be also a 90 degree. So orthocenter, how about we use maybe H here to represent the orthocenter. And then now you will see that the calculation becomes BH will be perpendicular to OA. So that's why slope of BH times slope of OA will be a -1. So you bear in mind that H now we call it A0. So that's how we set up an equation and solve the answer. And then as a result, you have 24 minus 0 for slope BH, and then 18 minus A afterward. While slope of OA will be minus 24 minus 0, and 18 minus 0, and then equal to -1. So after some steps, and then so see whether you can get the answer. Okay, let's pause for a minute and then you solve the equation. And you finally find the answer to be A, -14. So that's how you analyze the question about orthocenter with the feature of the picture, which is you can see 18 here, so which is like an isosceles triangle. So at last you need to use the property of perpendicular in order to solve the problem. And then finally, see whether you are very careful enough to see that actually my diagram is wrong. Because when you get minus 14, but yet does it make sense to have a point here? So this is the drawback, or this is the problem when you are using a graph which helps you to do the calculation. Now, but in math, calculation doesn't lie, and then so what you obtain should be a proper answer. The only mistake I made would be, at first, I assumed that the ortho center should be inside the triangle, so that's why I marked the point H. But yet, when you really do the calculation, you find that H should be somewhere outside, which means this triangle should be obtuse. So that's why the ortho center goes outside the triangle. But if you don't understand it quite well, so it doesn't matter. So do understand the idea, how we think of the question, as well as how we make use of perpendicular to solve the problem. The next one coming from 2009 will be easier, hopefully. And then, so the question this time is talking about centroid. So which is about what three lines we are going to consider? Yes, so it should be about three medians. That means like about midpoints. And then so you will be seeing that AG, BG, CG produce. So that means there are three lines cutting across each other inside the triangle. And then, so G is the centroid. And then now it tells you BL is 13, BN is 5, and CM is 12. And you are at last find the area. But before you start, you should not just looking at the area of triangle, because you have to study how we make use of 13, 5, and 12 first. So as a result, I try to look. Well, BL will be 13. But because G is a centroid, that means L is a midpoint. So in other words, that means LC will be also 13. Similarly, BN is a 5, whereas N should be a midpoint because of centroid, because of median, and AN is a 5. So finally, so it's a piece of cake to you, hopefully. M is a midpoint, and then CM is 12. So that means AM is also a 12. Right, that's good. So that means the triangle becomes a more familiar one to you with this length 10, 24, and 26 respectively. And now can you think of how to find the area? So you may be thinking hard to remember the formula, but don't forget that it's an MC, and then so that's why we may make use of calculator. So the formula you're going to use is called Heron's formula, but I'm not going to spell the formula explicitly today here. But yet you'll remember that it's provided in formula 3 in your calculator. And so what you are going to do will be, so you enter formula 3, enter 10, so enter mean EXE, enter 24 EXE, and enter 26 EXE. And you will obtain the answer, so which is 120, so which goes to the area. So do remember that when you are provided three lengths, so Heron's formula is your best choice in order to find your formula.